Writing is a tool for externalizing thoughts and externalizing and deconstructing emotions, and kind of defanging them. Because instead of just this vague, fuzzy feeling, you can really kind of take it apart, and it helps you develop greater awareness, which is the first step in a lot of self improvement. Is you have to be aware of what's even going on, right? But also the goal here, and I'm going to give a simple framework for this in a moment, but the goal is essentially to not just express this stuff, but get to a next step. Get to the point where you can say, okay, here's the fix, here's the solution, but here's the next step, the next thing I can try, something I can do differently. Because we don't want to be just like raging on paper, which you could also do. It can also be kind of self-indulging to express your anger and outrage and so on. But unless you connect it to, okay, now what do I do? How do I change? What's the next step? You can stay stuck there, which isn't very useful either. So a writing session, so these introspective writing sessions, they can look very different depending on what you're working on. But I want to provide a framework as a starting point. And you shouldn't feel like you have to stick to this framework all the time, but this is a starting point. The trigger to start a writing session is usually some conflict, some problem, something that is emotionally agitating. You go, okay, this thing happened. I got angry or I got sad or whatever. And I want to process that. That is what you want to make your writing session about. And the first thing is to, again, think of it as like shining a light on exactly what happened. Exactly what happened, in what order, this happened, it made me feel like this. Try to take that apart in as much detail as you can. Because clarity really helps. And then you can ask yourself the question, what story am I telling myself about this? So there's something inside you that initially it seems like the truth. The truth about this situation is XYZ. But actually that's a story that you're telling yourself and you're believing it because it's coming from inside yourself, which is, kind of a basic mistake that we tend to make. It's like, oh, it's not, the voice inside me suggested must be a good idea,
We believe everything we think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can ask yourself, what is the story that I'm telling myself about this? And then you can ask yourself, what could an alternative story be? What else could be true about this? And that's a really good practice to start realizing that the first thing that you think of is not necessarily true. Because you don't have to know exactly what the truth is. Often you can't. But it's enough to realize that, oh, the story that I tell myself sounds plausible, and that's why I believed it was true. But actually, there are other stories that are possible that are equally plausible. So how can I know whether I'm actually right about this?
So that's reducing your attachment to an emotionally triggering story.
Yeah.
And that's cultivating a sense of objectivity towards your thoughts and your emotions.
Yes. And then the third component here is to ask yourself, how would you like to think, act, or feel differently in the future in a similar situation? And what would a possible step towards that be? So, in other words, in the context of this situation, of what happened here, what would I like to change about myself? Not about other people, not about the situation. What would I like to change about myself, my own reaction? And how might I do that? And here's the same thing. You don't have to find the correct answer, the right solution. You have to find one thing that's worth trying. That's all. And so let me give you a specific example of how this could be applied, right? This framework we just walked through. So let's say I'm hanging out with some friends and someone makes a joke that's directed at me that hurts my feelings. For some reason, I feel like this is really rude or whatever. It hurts my feelings and I retreat, right? As a result, I don't respond to that, but I'm just like, I don't participate in the group anymore and I'm kind of a bit grumpy. And then none of my other friends seem to react to this. And so then I'm really upset because I'm like, why aren't you standing up for me? What's going on, right? I thought you were my friends. And I feel like betrayed and abandoned. And this could become a real spiral, depending on how long this goes on. I might be sitting there like stewing in these negative emotions because of what happened, right? So, okay, that would be my trigger. I go home and I go, well, this was horrible. what do I make of this, right? I want to write about this. So the first thing I'll do is write about exactly what happened. So exactly what was said to me. As exactly as possible, the words that were said. And what happened just before? What happened right afterwards? What was my first response? I try to really paint that scenario until I can say, okay, this is as accurate as possible a representation of what happened. Both what happened externally, so people, this person said that person said that, whatever. But also internally, I felt like this, I did that, And then, okay, what's the story I'm telling myself? The story I'm telling myself is that you made a rude joke about me that attacked me personally, and you knew that, and you must have known that this hurts me, and everybody else must have known that this hurts me, and you don't care. It's like you don't like me, that's why you hurt me. And all of you don't care about me, that's why you didn't defend me. That's the story I'm telling myself.
Right. So you've got the truth of the situation, and those are the objective facts, what actually happened that is not dependent upon a story at all. That's just, this is exactly what happened.
Yeah.
And the second part is, what's the story I'm telling myself?
Or my interpretation of those objective facts.
And it's important to not let the two bleed over.
Yeah.
Because when you're emotionally triggered and you start writing, it might be easy to say, what's the truth? These people are taking advantage of me. And it's like, story. It's like this person said this. Fact.
Yeah.
But this person's taking advantage of me. They're trying to do this, like, that story. So it's important to not let the two bleed over.
Exactly. And by the way, this is also a matter of practice. In the beginning, you might be having trouble keeping those apart, but trust that the more you do this, the easier you'll find making that distinction. And so that's the story I'm telling myself. And then I can ask myself, well, what are other possible stories here? I can say, hold on, well, the person who made this joke about me is kind of a jokester anyway, constantly takes jabs at people and stuff. And maybe I realize that, you know what, when he makes a joke about someone else, I just laugh about it, So maybe it's possible, or when he makes a joke about someone else, I don't think he's being malicious. I think he's being funny. So maybe it's possible that he was just making a joke because that's what he does all the time. And he didn't realize that this hurt my feelings. And maybe it's possible that nobody else realized either, right? Or even if they realized that something was off, look, it's possible that someone is there and goes, I don't care about Jane that much. I'm not going to do anything. It's also possible that they go, oh, I can see that there's something tense going on here, but what am I going to do? Like I'm too shy. I feel like it's not my place to do something, right? It's like maybe they're sitting there being worried about me, but because of the social situation, they're just like, I don't know what to do, so I'm not going to do anything.
Yeah.
It's like, how would I know, right? That's what I mean by that story is no less plausible than the one I told myself. So the story that says nobody cares about me, that's possible. The story that says people actually care about me and they just don't know how to handle it, that's also possible. The story that says people care about me, they didn't even realize I was hurt, that's also possible. How would I know? I can't know what their inner world is, right? So, and that can diffuse the whole thing where it's like, oh crap, actually, I don't know what happened here. There's a lot of details in this story that I actually don't realize. But then the next question is, well, what do I want to do differently? And again, important, like, what do I want to do differently? It's no use to say, well, I want people not to make jokes like that about me. Well, you can't do that.
You can't control that.
Yeah, exactly. So it has to be like, what is in my control? And I can say, look, the kind of person I would like to be is two things. One, I would like to not be easily offended. If someone makes a joke about someone else and I think that's funny, but they make a joke about me and I think that's not funny, I don't want to be that person. Okay. So that's one thing I can think, well, can I see like the light side of it, even if it's about me? Can I try to find humor before I find offense, But the other thing is, I want to be someone who has clear boundaries. Like, okay, if you say something that offends me, then I don't want to be someone who just sits there and stews. I want to be someone who says, hey, I find that really hurtful. Because I would rather have that kind of relationship with people. And I would rather that not ruin the evening, I would rather be like, hey, listen, I'm sorry. I know you're trying to be funny, but that's really fucking hurtful. Don't say that. And most likely, the other person's going to be like, oh, sorry, I had no idea. And then like 5 minutes later, everything's going to be fine. Instead of me sitting there stewing in my misery for 3 hours, right? That's who I'd like to be. And so then I can think about, well, okay, next time something like this happens, what could I try to do? And I can maybe say, okay, if this happens, what I want to do is I want to find an opportunity, maybe a private moment, maybe I don't want to call them out on the spot. That seems too uncomfortable. Just find a private moment to tell that person, hey, listen, that hurt my feelings. Please don't do that. And I can try that out. Maybe it's not going to work. Maybe that's not the solution, but it gives me something. It gives me something to aim for. And this kind of process, if you do that, if you make a routine of doing that, of trying to essentially find the things that bother you, find your emotional baggage, or basically when you get triggered like that emotionally, that's a signal of something that's unresolved, right?
Yeah.
So you can say, okay, what's going on here? Why does this hurt me? What happened here? And make a habit out of going through this process in writing. And over time, that's immensely powerful. Like this is a personal change tool. It's immensely powerful.